Hey everybody, this is Eli Freestone, and you're watching my Project 3 screencast for Advanced Scalable Data, term 1302. So this week's project went rather smooth for the most part. I didn't have any major hangups. There was a little bit of a learning curve for CouchDB for the interface for Futon, but once I got over that, it wasn't, everything there went really good. It did take a pretty significant amount of time to enter in all my, my docs. But I know that's really one of those things that you just got to really buckle down and do it right the first time. That way you don't have to come back and spend more time fixing it later. I even went back into my notes from VFW as well as did a little bit of freshening up on JSON formatting in general to really try and get it as close to what I'm going to need for next week as I could. Without really diving into what next week's project entails. I just didn't want to get stuck on something having to do with that and then end up forgetting something for this week's project. So yeah, I did spend a pretty significant amount of time, but I'm hoping that it's going to be time well spent. So anyways, let's go ahead and move on to something that didn't go so well. I did have a couple of issues with Cloudant. The first one being when I renamed my design/app file and everything associated with it to /save-a-date. Everything worked fine in CouchDB, but as soon as I replicated it over to Cloudant, all of a sudden my browse functions were looking for that map file back in the /app folder, which didn't exist. I couldn't figure out exactly where it was still being referred to as /app. I went through all my documents and couldn't figure that out, so I ended up having to go back to /app for time's sake. And then after I finish up this video and whatnot, I'm going to go back in and see if I can figure out what was going on with that. Another issue I had was if I had to do any major revisions to any of my files after it's gone to Cloudant. I actually missed a couple of things in my main.js where it was still looking for a specific file within a subfolder, which I had to remove. So I had to go back in and fix that, but then it wouldn't update on Cloudant, regardless if I was syncing it from Eclipse or trying to take it over from CouchDB. Pretty much the only thing I found that actually worked was I had to completely delete my database from Cloudant and then re-replicate it from CouchDB to get the updated file. I did do a little bit of research to try and figure out what was going on with that. I found a few other people that had similar issues, but I didn't really find any fixes for it. I know it's not really an ideal situation when you have to completely delete a database, but thankfully at this point I have a duplicate over on Couch, so it works for the moment. But if I didn't have that, say if I was in a project, out in the real world, and I didn't have that backup like that, that could really cause some major issues. So anyways, I'm not 100% why it was doing that, why it wasn't updating, because sometimes it would just fine, and then others it wouldn't. But, I think there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that I don't really understand yet. So, I guess there could be a lot of different places where it could go wrong. So anyways, let's go back to CouchDB. As a service, I really like it. I think it really opens up a lot of doors for the independent programmer that needs access to a database but doesn't have the resources to buy their own server or pay one of the big CDN companies like Google or Microsoft to host their files there. As long as their app isn't requiring super heavy database usage, I think it's a perfectly good alternative to all those, and it, can really get their app going, and they can really use that to advantage. I think there's obviously a point where if they're using a lot of database stuff that they're gonna have to start looking into other options, but for really light work I think it really solves that problem very well. So I guess that's about it. Again, this is Eli Freestone, ASD 1302, and this was Project 3. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.